Welcome back. It's Friday. It's weekend preview, and not much to preview this weekend, Ari. But it's a quiet weekend when the biggest game of the weekend is the schools derby, and the Currie Cup's actually ongoing. It shows you how much the Currie Cup has fallen in our estimation. Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks, Emir. Yes, a nice weekend ahead of us. Big school games in Cape Town. So there's a few derbies. A big one in Paarl. That's the annual highlight, and then All Blacks in town. So I haven't seen them. They're here somewhere. So I've seen some online photos of them in the waterfront and taking photos with Table Mountain in the background. So it's a nice weekend in Cape Town weather-wise. So they're lucky. I don't know if it's going to be the same next week. There seems to be some cold fronts coming in, but not raining when the Stormers play, apparently. I think it's just going to be cloudy. But they're in town, so that's exciting. It's exciting for me. I think everybody's looking forward to this. There's been lots of banter, lots of talk, and lots of discussions, and lots of opinions. So it's nice to see from former coaches to former players to everybody's giving their opinion and trying to figure out how this can play out. So it's nice that it can start. So they're in town, ready to play, and Springboks got a task to go to Argentina first, but then all the fun starts. So that's nice. So lots of rugby to look forward to. But and into schools, two big ones in Cape Town, and then the Currie Cup is also going. And then all of a sudden, when we wake up next week, it's all guns are blazing with the All Blacks around us.
You mentioned ex-coaches, and I think this is the perfect opportunity. I hinted this morning in the lunch break episode that we've got a special guest that's going to be joining us for the rugby rivalry on Mondays to talk to us about what happened over the weekend. And you brought this person along, or invited him on board, because he knows what it's like to come up against the All Blacks, both not as a player, I suppose, but as a coach, and to play in New Zealand as a player as well. Tell us who it is, man. We've all been holding our breaths here. We're excited. Tell us.
Yeah. So everybody watching, join us on Monday. So every Monday we're going to talk to Dick Muir, and Dick Muir is experienced. The exciting thing about Dick Muir is that obviously was also in the Springbok camp as an assistant coach. So he coached against the All Blacks extensively, in a time when it was really competitive as well, with Coach Peter de Villiers in that time, with Gary Gold as well. So he knows how to coach against them. He actually played against them as well. We spoke about that. We'll speak about that on Monday, his experiences. He actually also played against the All Blacks in 1992 for the Sharks. So that's two kind of angles that he knows the All Blacks. But I think the benefit for everybody watching and joining us on Monday, MV, is that you have somebody that's been closer to the action. I mean, it's very helpful to have somebody that can look at what happened over the weekend. So by Monday, we'll just kind of talk about what's going to happen. But from the next Mondays following, we'll be able to kind of look back what happened on the Saturday. And then specifically after the test matches. So it will be very special to have somebody like Dick Muir just give us insight what he saw, and maybe get his thoughts. How can teams adjust? So what's going to happen is every Saturday that we talk, somebody will need to adjust. So meaning somebody lost and somebody won. Besides, if it's a draw, then it will be interesting. But so that will be interesting to get his thoughts. How do you adjust? How do you do? What did he see? Who made mistakes? Who can do something better? What players do they need to come in, and who needs to go out? So that will be nice. But Dick Muir, so look out for that on Monday. That's exciting.
Okay, let's talk about this weekend's rugby. We said there's not much to talk about, but I suppose the Paarl Derby is it the biggest or one of the biggest rugby games, schools rugby games in the world? I heard talk along those lines. How many people attended, and the whole town gets divided for the day. Tell us about that a little bit. Where does it come from, the rivalry and everything, and now the two teams are stacking up against each other this year?
Yes, it's always competitive, and it's a great weekend of rugby, and there's good amount of respect. There's good banter between them as well. Obviously, the winners, it's either green or blue for the year, but there's good respect in Paarl for that. It's going back to 1915, MV. So it's in terms of years, it goes back quite a bit. And there's been lots of games, more than 100 games, almost 100 games plus that was played over this time. And I think it's the biggest in terms of people attending. That's one. And they would have more people there if they're in a bigger stadium. So they're in Forestry Stadium there in Paarl. People that know Paarl maybe It's a neutral field, so it's not one of the schools' field. It's one of the big stadiums, or the stadium in Paarl, for a street they call it, and so it can I think it can 24 maximum around there 1,000. So there's athletics, there's a cycling track around the rugby field as well, so the people sit on the cycling track as well. So that's a brilliant vibe. Great day. It's going to be a perfect day. 25 degrees on Saturday. Perfect day in Cape Town. So that's going to be an amazing day. But yes, going back, interestingly enough, it's quite close. Paarl Gymnasium 151 times. Paarl Boys High 44 times. 11 times a draw. And the interesting stat, since 1915, if you add up all the scores, MV, from all those years, there's a difference of 5 points between the teams. So it's always extremely close. You have, the 2024 was a big score, 30 points to 8 for Gim, but that was kind of, it happened, there's like 3 or 4 of them. Mostly it's 1 or 2 or 5 or 7 or 10 points in it. Last year it was 35-33 for Boys High. So it's always very close and competitive, and both schools obviously highly ranked on the schools system in the rankings, and there's also always good players coming from those schools. So it is exciting. So that's all happening in Paarl on Saturday. Obviously we're talking rugby, but there's also obviously strong netball as well, with the Girls Eye and Paarl Gymnasium and hockey, etc. So it's a festive week.
Any young players, names that are, drawing attention, that we should be paying attention to? We know these schools have traditionally produced players that went on to become Springboks and Blue Bulls and Stormers, and players of note almost. Any player names that stand out for you this year?
Yeah, there's always quite a few. There's a Boysa that played scrummer for Paarl Gymnasium, that also played SS Schools, and then Schulze, he's one of the locks for Paarl Gymnasium. So he played for the not for the first 2 teams there, but he is highly rated. He was also signed by the Stormers. There's always quite a few young talent that come out of that, and I think the talents for the year, if you look at that, MBA, is that if you look at names that came through there, Springboks that came through Gymnasium and Paarl Boys, it's an amazing, impressive list. It seems like Paarl Boys has got more props that came through, and then Paarl Gymnasium more centers. Some of the props that we'll know from Boys High is Guthrie Steenkamp and Thomas de Tour and Frans Malherbe. So those are 3 very, very strong props that came from Boys High. Centers from Gim, Barry, John de Villiers, Marius Joubert. There's 3 of them, but then you've got Karel du Plessis from Boys High as well. Corneille Krieger, Mannetjies Roux also. There's Kobus Wiese, current players Grant Williams and Andre Pollard for Gim, Skalkberger. So there's a long list to name from those 2 schools. So there's always quite a bit of talent coming through. Marcus Miller is maybe a new one that popped up, but he must still prove himself as well. But always good talent coming out, and very competitive. So it will be a big one again on Saturday, and they're very, very close to each other. The last weekend, Paarl Boys High beat Durbanville quite convincingly, 50-something 7, and then Paarl Gym played against Rondebosch and also had a win there. So now it's all to play for. But there's some other inter-schools as well. I think Stellenberg and Durbanville also playing over the weekend.
Sometimes I live in my own head. I once played an entire 18 round of golf with Marius Joubert, and I didn't recognize him. I spoke to him all the time. He was, I played some rugby. He's talking afterwards. I realized it was Marius Joubert that I played golf with for 18 rounds. I mean, those are the days where I still played golf. That's long ago, though. Anyway, that was quite stupid, I must be honest. And you're talking about props and the likes. Don't forget about eighth men. I mean, Evan Roos, Cameron Hanekom, Frankie Horn, all those coming from those schools. So there's nothing new. So I'm looking forward to that. I'll even watch that myself. Being a Pretoria boy, I'm sure that I'll enjoy it. Obviously, there's some big games up here as well. The Noordval, I think, is ongoing, but I'm not sure, not to clued up on those fixtures. Let's just talk about the Currie Cup then coming up. Like I said, the Currie Cup has lost some of its fizzle if the Schools Derby is a bigger game than any of these games. The Bulls play against the Lions at UJ Stadium. Griquas welcome Cheetahs to Kimberley, and then the Pumas go to Boland for another church service in the morning and a beer tent in the afternoon Sunday. You joked about it last week, but it seems to work though, don't you think?
Yeah, that worked well. Just before I go to Boland, the Stormers play the Sharks in Cape Town Stadium 3:00 on Saturday. But there's another big derby in Cape Town, that's Stellenberg and Durbanville. So between the big derbies, there's probably going to be not many people going to that Currie Cup game because of that. That's going to have an influence, I think. So Stellenberg and Durbanville also a big tradition and a big game. Just to mention that as well. It's at Stellenberg this year, and Stellenberg having a brilliant season, so it's going to be tough for Durbanville to win that one. But yes, I was at the rugby last week when the Stormers played there against Boland. A brilliant atmosphere. It's going to be again a great day on Sunday, and they expect a full house again. So yes, it's unique. 1 p.m. they have a church service, and I know many of the players very committed in their faith, so they take that serious. Like Thurlow Marsh, the captain as well, is very committed in his faith, and many of the players as well. So they take that seriously. So it's not perfect to play on a Sunday, and we kind of try to get used to that. But Sunday, for us as well, and for people watching as well, is your day to kind of rest, and your church day. So we do go to the beach, and we do go drive around a little bit, but it's the day to rest a little bit. So rugby, we got used to playing cricket. Cricket, I think, started with that. So we got used to cricket being played mostly on a Sunday, but now rugby sneaked into that as well. But it's not perfect, but they made the best of it. Actually, the previous season as well in the Currie Cup, Boland played quite a few games on the Sunday as well, and they have a great success on the Sunday, actually. So they keep on winning. So, but it will be a competitive game against Pumas. But yes, it's church at 1, and then rugby at 3 with the beer tent behind the poles. So that is an interesting day.
And it's going to be interesting to see if Faf grabs a walkie-talkie again and sends messages up to the coaching box and the likes. That's quite an interesting conversation. People saying, yeah, but maybe we should bring that in as an innovation. NFL, the quarterback has got a radio in his helmet. He can't talk to the coaches, but the coaches can talk to him. Just as an aside, what do you think of that side of things? You know, it's probably better than shining lights from the top of the roof or something like that.
Yeah, things have changed. I remember that if I go way back, Hansie Cronje was in trouble when he put something like microphone in his ear and communicated with his captain or his coach in the box, and they took that out later. You can talk about tennis. Remember, there was lots of controversy of coaches in the coaches box with Venus Williams and Serena Williams with controversies there. And now they can coach. They can talk to them and whatever. So that changes. I haven't seen a player like that take the walkie-talkie or whatever you call that and speaking right directly to the coach. That's quite interesting. I don't even know if there's a law that prevents it. If you grab it quickly and just talk, it's the easy way to just communicate. So it's something that you're not hiding, at least. So if the referee say you can't do that, then you can just give it back to the person carrying the water. But it's the communication is a big thing. I saw again also the Stormers when they played Boland. Pine Pienaar was on water again. He's the defensive coach. So you have them running onto the field the whole time. So if there's an injury break somewhere, they're onto the field. So there's continuously getting messages onto the field. But that is a frustration for the coaches to get that message down quicker. You sometimes see a coach in the box just kind of shouting out instructions on that walkie-talkie, and then you're thinking, all right, I'm not sure who's going to listen to that first.
Who's hearing that message?
And somehow they must take that message and wait for a break or get it onto the field somehow. So it's but it in the heat of the battle, you know, it gets interesting. But they find ways to communicate. I'm not sure what Rossi's using at the moment. He had lights there as well and colors and stuff, so he's always creative. Yeah. But I think he's relying on good communication with the water, the people with water on them. Dwayne Vermeulen, yeah.
Listen, just briefly, you touched upon on the Stormers' defensive coach. I didn't know they had one. I mean, they conceded 41 points. Is there a defensive coach of the Stormers? I'm saying tongue in cheek.
Yeah, that's a nasty one. Yeah. It's there is, and they'll hope to plug that against the Sharks. But maybe a compliment to the Boland. They played well, and they deserved that 41 points. So they're a very dangerous side when they get going, and I think I talked about that last time. They can see they're well coached, and they've got a backline that's really keen to run. Good signing, a good arrangement for the Bulls is to have access to Mitchell. Yeah, so that will be his exciting runner. So but they need to do better. Yeah, so the Stormers, it didn't look good. 41 points to 3 is a big hiding actually. We'll see how they recover and play. There's a few new players coming in against the Sharks. Marcus Miller, one of them. But it's not. I don't think they're going to make. It's difficult to just make an immediate massive influence on just coming into the team like that. But we'll see how that goes on Saturday. But yes, Pine is doing the defense for them.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
I'm kidding.
No, he's
I'm
gonna
kidding,
phone you.
people.
I
Please,
think
please
he's got
don't.
your number.
Yeah, I've got my tongue in my cheek very firmly. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. Listen, the big story about the Currie Cup, I think, so far, is the fact that players are getting injured so badly. The Bulls, this week, we saw Coach Pibu Normu saying that they've lost their captain, Namakaba, ex-Stormers player. Of course, they've... let me read it all to you here. They've lost Skierman, the hooker. They've lost P.A. van Niekerk, the centre. And now Nicholas Jansen van Rensburg taking over. And then JJ Tron and Neil Leroux is also unavailable. And then the Stormers, Ollie Kebbel is out for the rest of the season. Tom Barnett has recovered. They've got a couple of players coming back. Griquas have lost Cameron Hafke. And this is a bit of a worry for the Bulls. They've lost Dylan Mart with a shoulder injury. So the injuries are quite bad. I mean, especially the franchise is already stretched because they have to, some of them have to let go of their Springboks. Then they have to prepare for the URC and for the All Blacks games, and they have to cope with injuries, and they have to play a Currie Cup with their under-23 players, and the under-20 Cup is just starting one of these days. That's a bit of a challenge, a bit of a stretch, don't you think?
Yeah, and the Currie Cup teams don't have the depth, especially the test unions that maybe the teams like the Pumas and Griquas and Free State will have. They will have their full squads on call, but the Stormers kind of thinking All Blacks. So the same with the other test unions. So that makes it difficult. They have the players that they've signed to them, and they probably not going to get players from the top, meaning they're not going to have players that's kind of in contention to play against the All Blacks coming down to the Currie Cup. So that's a worry. It's maybe also an interesting discussion, MV, if you think about it, leading into the All Blacks playing 8 games in 6 weeks. And so that's going to be lots of pressure on them. And it's going to be high intensity, and they're going to play against teams that will go for them. Definitely. They're not going to hold back. And there's going to be lots of physicality and lots of collisions. And so I'm not saying that the All Blacks will just pick up loads of injuries, but there's always a risk in rugby, no matter what kind of, if you play a World Cup or just a normal league game, whatever, there's always a risk. But I think the reality is that we will probably see injuries on both sides, from the Springboks and the All Blacks, especially if you have 4 test matches. So it's probably not going to happen that after the first and second test we'll have the same 23s going into the third test. So it will be tested and see. Sometimes you need a bit of luck there as well, not to lose somebody in a key position. Sometimes you're okay and you have a game that you don't lose anyone. Sometimes it's just a niggle. But it's going to be the depth of the squads are going to be under pressure. That we know, that's been discussed, and that's what Rassie tried to address quite a bit. The All Blacks also played quite a few players in the first 3 games as well, not as many as the Springboks. But it's going to be interesting how people survive there. But there's going to be injuries, and that's rugby. It's a collision sport. So like Peter de Villiers said, it's not ballet, it's not tutus that they're wearing. It's tough and physical. So that's how we're going to see it.
I think on Monday that this will be the perfect thing to talk to Dick Muir about. Larry's stat, the CPR stat, the carry passes and rucks, and the All Blacks have dramatically increased their CPR rate, 581 per match now, where it used to be around about 500 or less than 500. What the impact of that, does he think it's sustainable, as an ex-Springbok assistant coach and the likes? What does he think of this way that the All Blacks are playing? Is it a trend? Is that how they're going to be playing? Or was it how they played against those three countries? And will they adjust their play, kick more, etc.? We'll talk to Dick about that on Monday. So don't miss that. I mean, I'd love to hear what his point of view is on that one. That's going to be very interesting. Let's just get back to the Currie Cup quickly. You mentioned the Stormers now. A guy like Marcus Miller making his debut for the Stormers at centre. Do you think he's in the running to play against the All Blacks next weekend as well? I'm not sure what the URC situation is. Do you have any indication of who's going to be able to play yet, or was it still up in the air a little bit?
It's up in the air a little bit. We I had a discussion with somebody yesterday. We kind of also tried to figure out who's available, who's not. So I think they can pick a strong backline, the Stormers, but I think it will depend on also if Rassie decides if Sasha, Feinberg and Kumazulu needs to have another game. Maybe it all depends on what happens in Argentina. Maybe that one game is enough. He's got the option to release him for the Stormers, I suppose, but you would think Yuri Matia would be at 10. But then you've got probably at the moment at centre, if you talk about Miller, you've got Nel and Duplessis probably. I don't think Duplessis has gone to France yet. So I think if they're healthy, it will be Duplessis and Nel that normally plays for the USC. That will be the preferred centres. I see Suleiman Hartzenberg was picked for the Stormers 23. So he would be somebody that's normally in the mix as well on wing and outside centre as well. So maybe Marcus Miller is above him at the moment. Maybe that's an indication, but they're both playing in the same team against the Sharks on Saturday. So it will maybe a bit of trials and see who comes through the best there. But Marcus Miller is still a very young player, so it's going to be a decent step up for him to play against the All Blacks if that happens. But I think the Stormers will have Senatla and Zas and Gelant and those players. I think that will be the players that will be in there, and Ronel and Duplessis probably. And Yuri Matia at fly half probably. So that will be the team, I think, at the back line. But I'm not sure if all of them are available, especially Duplessis. But I think Nel will definitely be the outside centre. So that would be where Marcus Miller would comfortably. His preferred position is 13. So I think Ruanel will take that.
Mm. Yeah, okay. Let's talk about the Currie Cup again. I keep coming back to it. The Bulls take on the Lions at UJ, not Ellis Park. And that's simply because Ellis Park has to be prepared for the test, apparently. The one against the All Blacks on the 22nd. That's why they're playing this game against the Bulls at UJ, and the next one is going to be at Wits Stadium. But these are smaller stadiums. They've got less capacity. They'll probably be filled up. There was less than 1,000 people at last weekend's match at Ellis Park for a Currie Cup match, for a team that played in the final last year, played in the final year before. I don't know, yeah. Jan de Koning had a big go at Ellis Park's boss this past week. I mean, I like the idea of smaller stadiums, especially if the Currie Cup has now become a sort of a diluted version of what it used to be, a bit of an afgewaterde competition kind of a thing. Then go take it to the people, take it to smaller stadiums. It's not to do with the safety or anything so much, but to fill a 62,000 seater stadium with 1,000 people in it looks very empty. Make no mistake. What do you think of that angle?
Yeah, it is. I think it's probably quite expensive to open up that stadium as well for a day like that. But there's been a few games in Cape Town also at Stellenbosch at Danie Craven Stadium for the Stormers when the Cape Town Stadium wasn't available, and it's nice when it's nice and compact to play where the university teams play. That is comparable maybe because that's where University of Stellenbosch Marties play, and so the Stormers have played there more than once. So I think it's a nice vibe. It's more compact, like you say, and it's also a stadium that people know because I also know UJ has got a good following. So you have people that know how to get there at least, and they've been there and they've had good experiences. So I agree. It's would be interesting to have them there. Yes, Ellis Park will always be the stadium for the Lions. So that is how we see it, and I think that's their strength as well. But the logic is that if you only have 1,000 or 2 people, then it becomes it's not good for the players as well. It's a massive stadium, and it must be strange to play there. It must feel like a practice day or a captain's run at times.
Yeah, in terms of the Bulls, they welcoming a lot of players. Listen to this: players coming back from the Junior Springboks that won the World Rugby Under 20. Sipusetu Ndebelele, Kebutile Make, Heinrich Tron, Andres Kuman, Akwa Bokwane, and Thomas Belling all returned to Vodacom Bulls colours after helping the Junior Springboks lift the World Rugby Under 20 Championship trophy. Now, this is interesting. I mean, I wonder how long they can be playing for the Currie Cup before they have to go play Under 20. That's, I don't know. SA Rugby, I don't know, just too much, I think. Just too much rugby. Have you heard anything about their supposed review of what competitions they're going to be playing and not playing in? Because they were supposed to do that in July. Today's the last day of July, and we haven't heard a squeak from them.
I haven't heard anything official as well. So yes, I agree. I saw a under 20 team of Western Province also selected with Gert Kemp and some of those players that played in the under 20s in that team. So the same happens in Cape Town as well. So it must be quite an expensive process to run for the Bulls and the Sharks and for the Stormers and everyone to accommodate all those players, because there's a big demand on those players' signatures as well. So you need to play them a good. Give them a good contract to keep all these under 20 stars, and they having stronger profiles younger now as well. So players like Marcus Miller, etc., and Gilomir comes out of this under 20s with a very high profile. So we know that Gilomir did move now from the Sharks to the Bulls, but I think there's.
No, but no, I want to ask you, sorry to interrupt you. He's coming to the Bulls, but he's still playing for the Sharks. I wanted to ask you, when are they moving over? When is it now supposed to be, which it's not, he's supposed to be playing URC, isn't it? But he's not even part of the preseason. That does, same in Nebelele, the hooker, he's supposed to go to the Sharks, but he's still with the Bulls. I'm not sure what the story is there. Sorry to interrupt you, Ari.
No, that's fine. It's so important that you need to raise it immediately, but it is frustrating to know when a season ends. So you've got the URC that we know when it ends. The Currie Cup is probably that you will say it's a season that ends. So I think we're all living in a life of different seasons. Like Cheslin Colby apparently signed for the Stormers already from the 1st of July, I think. So he's already on the Stormers book as early as now. So his season ended in Japan, so that was kind of the cue. So I would think that they will run it up to the Currie Cup, probably the Sharks. I'm not sure how those terms would work, if it's year on year, if it goes to the end of December, like on the calendar, or is it linked to a competition season or URC season, and it will be all around what dates were signed on that contract. So it's difficult to say when Gilomir will move over. It sounded like players like Dylan Mart after the Currie Cup, and also I understood that Gilomir will be joining the Bulls after the completion of the Currie Cup to be ready for the URC, the new season of the URC. I didn't pick up that he was only going to come across to the Sharks after the URC. That's going to be next year, so it should be nice.
Yeah, remember the Jordan Hendrickse thing, where he was supposed to leave the Lions at the end of December, and the Lions didn't want to release him to go to the Sharks. That was a contractual thing. No, it makes sense. It's just funny that all these players would now miss the URC warm up, the preseason, to call it that. And we know last year one of the biggest complaints of the coaches was the fact that they didn't have a proper preseason, especially the Bulls, with Johan Ackerman coming in, you had 18 players to do a preseason with, if I remember correctly. It was a different time to what it is at the moment. I'm looking forward to this URC, and I saw a little video of Neil de Bruyn yesterday, looking like the Bulls are, getting their act together. Exciting times lying ahead, man.
Yeah, I saw a list of all the new players coming around. There's quite a few exciting players joining the Bulls. That outside centre from the Pumas, quite a strong player as well. And there's Gilomir that we mentioned. There's Dylan Mart. There's Takir Abrams. So there's some speed and pace that's coming across.
Kerwin Bosch, Xavier Mitchell, don't forget.
And Kerwin Bosch, and then Xavier Mitchell that I talked about from Boland, that made that arrangement that he plays for the Boland. And seemed like there's another arrangement, Alistair Vermaak, that played for the Boland prop, that played for the Stormers. But I saw that there was media reports today that said that he's got a dual arrangement, a similar one with the Stormers as well. So he'll continue to be available for the Stormers in URC if needed. So I think there's deals that they make like that. But I think the alignment of the ownerships between the Bulls and the Boland will probably see more players of Boland going into those arrangements with the Bulls and not with the Stormers.
Yeah, we had an interview with Quinton van Rooyen, who's the CEO of the Boland the other day, and he's very excited about this big brother that they've now got in the Bulls. And definitely we're going to be seeing more of this kind of, samenwerking, cooperation, use this player, lend that player. Looking forward to that. Let's just go through the fixtures quickly. I want to ask your opinion about them. What do you think is going to happen? Firstly, Griquas versus Cheetahs on Friday, tonight, in Kimberley. Never an easy game. Griquas defending champions, Cheetahs being the leaders in the log, actually. I mixed it up earlier. Griquas playing Cheetahs. Right, so what do you think? Who's going to win that one?
It's one game that the Cheetahs can go and win. They Bloemfontein and Kimberley not far from each other, and they kind of similar environments, similar fields, and quite a few injuries with Griquas, so that they lost a bit of momentum there, I think. But they still have a very good team, a settled team, but the group was playing against a team that's very settled, and with Faf there, and there's a few players that came in that really made them better. So I won't be surprised if the Cheetahs win that game. So it's always tough to win at Griquas. So they've got a very high percentage win at home against everyone. So it will be tough for the Cheetahs to win. But if there's one game that I would say a away team can win, it is that one. I think the Cheetahs can win against Griquas in Kimberley. Yeah, I think that will be an interesting one. That's one of the games besides the one in Wellington, that's one of the games, probably all four quite interesting, but that's one to watch tonight.
Peter Berg said there were 9 players unavailable for this clash. Cameron Hafke's season is over. Dylan Martz is out for several weeks, like I said, and then another 7 players not available for the Griquas. So that's challenging. Can't deny that. The next one is the Stormers versus the Sharks. Now, we touched on that. Saturday afternoon, 3 o'clock in Cape Town Stadium, competing against the Paul Derby, competing against the Stellenberg Derby, competing against a lot of other sports, I suppose, and not being the tournament that it was. I say it again, the Currie Cup. What are you expecting there?
Yeah, it's a home game for the Stormers, and they did well against Griquas, and it was a scruffy game. It was that first game. There were lots of refereeing decisions coming into play there on both sides, so it was a bit of a disruptive game. It's a 3 p.m. game, which is better this time of the year. That evening games in Cape Town seem to sometimes there's a little bit of a mist coming in. It might be a factor when the All Blacks play the Stormers as well. That it's a bit more not a dew factor, but it's more. There's a mist hanging around there sometimes. So a 3 p.m. game in Cape Town, a nice day on Saturday. So that would be exciting to see. But we touched on Pint Pienaar, so you can wait for his call. I still think he's going to give you a call. But
I'm sure he will.
He's under pressure. You already know that he's under pressure there, so you need to fix that. So that's what he's there for.
Yeah, but he owned up to it this week, didn't he?
Yeah, he will. Yeah. 41-3, so that's not good enough for the Stormers against the Boland. So they will try to address that first. Few new players coming in there. So it's going to be competitive. The Sharks also have lots of depth. They've been playing well. They beat the Pumas away the first game, remember. Apologies, in Nelspruit. So they can win away. One of the few teams that won away. So I think it's going to be quite competitive. I think the Stormers will probably have a bit of a wake-up. I saw that reports that Tom Dawson's squib subtly kind of put the whip into there, or kind of...
He laid down the law.
Yeah, that's correct. And they had a stronger voice in the conversation.
Yeah, he did very gently, apparently. I'm not sure how you gently laid down the law, but apparently he did. So he's Mr. Kop Doctor. So yeah, we know.
He knows exactly. I wanted to say the same. He knows the sports psychology, so he will probably get them into tears.
Sorry, we let you down, coach.
Yes, so that'll be interesting, but I think the Stormers will be up for it. They've got a proud record in Cape Town. So when they play in the Stormers jersey, although it's a Stormers 23, that's new for the season as well. The Western Province also had a proud record there, but so the Sharks will come for them, but I think they will better on defence. They've got attacking players, they've got good players there, exciting new players. So we'll see how that develops. But I would go with the home team. I will go with the Stormers 23 for that one.
Right, Lions versus Bulls. I saw the Lions team, and I know very few of the names of those players. Ruan Vermaak is the captain. He stood out for me, but it's all young players. But they're doing well. Mzwakhe Nkosi seems to be, being able to every year get the Currie Cup squad whipped into shape quickly enough, make the finals. Maybe not getting over the final hurdle, but still, he seems to be able to, get his young players to just play together properly as a unit. I think the Lions must be one of the teams to watch for me as well. What are you expecting from that match?
Yeah, I agree. Also a young team, and I looked at the team. I thought that a player like Ranger du Plessis will be more like in the starter.
On the bench.
Kearns is on the bench again, and Kearns is starting on the flank again. But I think they must give Ranger du Plessis more opportunities, but they have a plan there. Exciting player. Moose on scrum half from a Cape that's going to start for them at 9. So there's a few new players, but also I agree with you, lots of players that we don't know. There's Jonker still at centre. That's settled settled in. So there's some experience in there. Nadia as well, one of the props, but it is a young team. But the Lions played well. They had a good win. They beat the Pumas, remember? That was at Ellis Park, so and quite convincingly. They racked up close to 50 points, more than 50. So they're attacking team, they're well coached, so I think it will be a tough game, although they play at University of Johannesburg, but that will be a proper home game for them. It will feel like a home game. I don't think they will lose anything going from Ellis Park to University of Johannesburg. If anything, it might be more compact and even more of a support, having the crowd maybe more compact and around you. So it's, I think, a tough one for the Bulls, but they will also be up for it. I think they're better than the first two games, but we must remember it's a third away game, so we must kind of also take that into account for the Bulls. It's tough, and we saw how easily the Boland beat the Stormers 23, and the Bulls had a closer game. But still lost, and Greek was tough. Was always going to be tough to play Greek was in Kimberley straight after that first one. So after this one, they've got a few home games and they can get momentum. But a good one to win for the Bulls to just get that momentum earlier. And if you can get one away game win like this on Saturday, that will get your season going quickly.
Turn the season around. Ari, three things about the replacement bench that caught my attention. Number one, Ruan Velman is on the bench, and that's now the second Velman that I see playing rugby. The other one, of course, is a lady that plays for the Springbok women. And then, like we said, Renzo du Plessis on the bench. And then a guy called Exos Kevani. I've never heard of him. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, is his name Exos? What's his name?
Exos. Exauce. It's not spelled like exhaust, but exhaust or something. I'm not sure. I don't know. Kevani. Never heard of the guy. Yeah. That's an interesting one. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's talk about the final game, the Boland versus the Pumas. And the Pumas are not having the best season. Lost that opening game against the Sharks. Lost against the Lions. Not the Pumas that we used to. Even though they played in the final of the SA Cup, something's not clicking at the Pumas. What's happening there?
Yeah, that first game was the one they should have done better. So it's difficult playing the Sharks. It's the first game of the season. Looking back on what happened so far, there's mostly the home teams had a good advantage. So the second week too, all the home teams won. But that was maybe one that slipped away for them, and that put pressure on them. And then with two away games now, one in Johannesburg and now this one. So yes, it's a difficult one for the Pumas. And Boland is becoming a bit of a fortress for the Cavaliers, and they've always had good support. What happened in Boland that worked well is they've got a brilliant club system, a top 12, top 10 system where club rugby is very healthy. They've got 221 clubs. But that system builds up to finals, semi-finals where it's packed. I've been there to a few of those semi-finals and finals, and people want to go there. And it's a nice stadium to go to, and it's a nice vibe, and it's a nice. Wellington is a nice town feel that you get, and they've got great support. They fill the stadium, the main pavilion, the open field pavilion as well, and so it's full house. So I think that's for Boland a big component. So they have the big support, obviously, but they're a brilliantly coached team, and so I get more and more respect for Javi Fourie in what he's doing at Boland, and he knows Boland. He played his own rugby at Ceres. He started there in club rugby, played for Boland as well himself, but he coached the Marties as well, coached Free State Cheetahs. So he's an experienced coach, but he's always had good success. He had good success at Marties as well. So, and you can see, I think the biggest accolade, we talked about it earlier, was Tom Dawson-Squip, the current coach of the Stormers, that actually texted him at one stage or sent him a voice clip. And last year, and said he complimented him on what he saw. So, and he said before the Stormers game, he said that's a team that's well coached, with good disciplines and good set piece. And I could see when I watched the game live against the Boland, apologies, against the Stormers, you could see the difference when the Stormers get the ball at the back line. It was there was some momentum, but it seems a little bit disjointed, and you can understand there's players that haven't played much together. But that Boland team know each other. They're very settled. There's one or two injuries as well, but they're a good team, and they get front football. They got good set pieces, and But I think that's a difficult team to beat there. So I would say that the Boland can win that game, but that would be the game that the Pumas will also step up now. So I don't expect a big battle. So it's not going to be the Pumas not going to arrive there and say, okay, just give us 30 points or 40 points. They're going to be extremely competitive, and they're desperate because they need to be desperate because they've lost the first two. So they need to win this urgently. So it's going to be a big battle on that Sunday in Wellington.
Right, let's bring this conversation full circle and ask for your prediction of the Paul Derby. Who's going to win this one? I see Paarlgym is actually the top school in the country, am I right?
Yeah, it's still number one seed. Yeah, they're number one seed at the moment. They just lost that very first game of the season to Stellenberg, and then the rest they've won all the games. So yes, they're a good team, but so is Paul Boyzai. Look, it's kind of, it borders on impossible to try and suggest who's gonna win. It's on the day. I know the talk in Paul, like all the big inter-schools, is that you don't want to be the favorite. Actually, you don't want to be the team that had this brilliant season. The other team's been battling, but it's not like that now. Both teams playing good rugby. Both teams had good tours, Noordside, and all the tournaments in Kimberley, etc. And in Western Province, they've basically won all the games that they've played. Now they play each other. So it's going to be unfair. Yeah, I'll have to guess to say who's going to win. But on form, it's really 50-50, as it was with every year. So it's kind of on the day. Interesting to see Louis Koen's son. He plays 10, Louis Koen. So he's a good player. There's Thomas Saunders, also plays wing for Paarlgym. That's a good player. They had a good Graham week as well, but unlucky not to be selected into teams. But it will be Louis Koen also played last year, so he played in the previous. So that might be maybe if I can lean to that, maybe the experience of having a player like Louis Koen that played the previous inter-schools as well at 10, understands the moment, and if he can get good ball and dictate a little bit more, then maybe I can lean it a little bit to Paarlgym, this one, but only just.
Okay, Ari, so this coming weekend, we know you're a big rugby guy. Which one of these games are you going to be watching? Are you going to be watching the Stellenberg Derby? Are you going to be watching the Paul Derby? Or are you going to be watching the Stormers take on the Sharks? Which one are you attending on the Saturday?
Yeah, there's actually 4 of them. That's the Wellington game as well. So yes, on Saturday I'll go to the Paul inter-school, so Paarlgym and Boyzai. That's a big one. And then on Sunday, do the Boland and the Pumas. So unfortunately, the Stellenberg and Stellenbosch, or the Stellenberg and Durbanville is quite close to where I live, but it's a clash with the Paul one. I've got another commitment there for media as well, so I need to be there. And then, but I'll be missing the Stormers 23 against the Sharks. So I'm not going to be close to the mountain. I'm going to be close to all the wine estates in between Paul and Wellington. That's going to be my focus over the weekend.
Yeah.
So I won't stop and drink anything, but nothing prevents me from stopping there and just buying something maybe to have later.
You Cape Townians, you never fail to rub it in. Like I said, I can drive to Afisco, watch them play. I think Noordheuwel. It's not the same. Driving down Ludwood Road, it's not the same as the wine route. Anyway, thank you for this. I appreciate it. Thank you for making time for us. I'll talk to you again on Monday, and then we're going to have Dick Muir. I'm so excited. I can't wait. Anyway, thank you. See you then.
Yeah, great. See you on Monday. Bye-bye.